Women are made to be loved, not understood. We're totally disenchanted with Charis on the Pimpy K Multiverse Network.
All right. It is time for another episode. This is episode 9, and we are back at it. Oh, this week. So much fun. I finally have a working phone again, just in case anyone was wondering how that saga was going. Second iPhone I've sent back to Apple to be replaced in a year. So hopefully this one outlives its fucking warranty, but I'm not holding my breath. So tons of stuff going on. We're definitely going over tonight because I had way too much to figure out, way too much to choose from. I'm going to give you a little update on the Alabama governor who is now stepped down, which is probably in his best interest. The bomb that was dropped on Afghanistan today, I'm going to give you some details on that. And we might be in the process of starting World War III. This is provided we go after North Korea as we have every intention of doing so. Give you a couple updates coming out of Syria as well, and I've also got some big announcements right after Kenny reads the contacts.
I was not ready for that.
On your toes. All
right, if you guys want to get a hold of Charis, you can call her on the hotline, 850-907-PMVN. That's 7686. Email is charis@ppk.com. Facebook, Disenchanted Charis. Twitter, Charis Tomlin. And youtube.com/c/ppk.
Alrighty. Okay, so as far as announcements go, I have got a few things in the works as far as a very special show. Oh my goodness. There it is. All right. I about had a crisis. As far as some things coming up, I'm actually going to be covering something that is obviously becoming an issue because now cops are beating up white girls.
Haha.
No, I'm not even kidding. And as soon as I can get the video to Kenny, I will get that up on our Facebook page. Police brutality is something that's come up over and over and over. And I do think it is becoming a serious issue. It needs to be talked about, and not just when horrible things like Freddie Gray and not Trayvon Martin necessarily, but it only gets talked about when you have like the riots in Baltimore or in Ferguson. It never gets talked about outside of that. And then it sort of turns into media fodder, and not in a good way. However, I saw a video today where, this girl, she might have weighed 110 pounds if you hosed her down. And the context is her boyfriend and some other guy were getting in a physical altercation. She attempted to break it up. The cop takes and slams this girl down on the ground. She's in heels and a mini dress. She is not going anywhere, nor is she a threat, especially when you consider the cop had her by at least 60 pounds. She was so light when she hit the ground, she bounced.
Haha.
It's really not funny.
I'm going to try to find the video.
Yeah, see if you can find the video. So anyway, all right, speeding right along. If you like this show, please share us. Please like us. I really want to get to the point where I can start doing more with it, as far as I want to do some live podcasts. I want to be able to perhaps do some merch and some promotions for you guys. But that's really hard to do when I have such a small fan base to get started. But huge shout out to my friend Blake and Deanna. They've supported us from day one. And they definitely make sure to take the time to at least listen to me for a few minutes. So thanks, guys. We appreciate your love and support, and keep loving and supporting us. So moving on to the Alabama governor who stepped down after he was caught having using state funds to carry on his little affair with I think she was his receptionist or something. How funny that happens. An aide, that's what she was. Well, his wife, it turns out, was a big reason as to how it all went down. For all you Apple people who love your iCloud, pay attention. This is good information for you. The messages he had been sending to his mistress were syncing with the iCloud and coming up on his wife's state issue iPad that he gave her. So, moral of the story, do not send your messages to iCloud. It could come back and bite you in the ass in a very big way. I also found that it was I thought it was kind of funny myself, but as of course we know, he has resigned as a result, and moving right along to more important and more pressing matters. Today, the U.S. Air Force dropped a MOAB on Afghanistan today. If you're not familiar with that, it is a very large bomb. It is actually called the mother of all bombs. It is the largest non-nuclear bomb that we possess in our arsenal. This is also the first time it's ever been dropped. It was originally...
Actually, that's not true, because it was dropped just down the road in, was that Crestview?
You are ruining it. Shut up.
My bad.
Pretend like I run this place.
I'm sorry.
Anyway, like I said,
Haha.
it is the largest non-nuclear bomb. And the way that it works is it doesn't actually hit the ground and detonate. It actually it detonates above ground before it makes an impact, and it ignites a fuel. And then it basically incinerates everything within a 1,000-foot radius in all directions. As of right now, there have been no reported civilian casualties as a result of this. The idea was to combat the Islamic State and to try to take out ISIS and ISIL within that area of Afghanistan. They did drop it in mountains and caves, with the idea being that the explosion would actually enter into the caves and cause damage that way. But, like I was saying before Kenny interrupted me, asshole, that it was originally developed to be used as a threat. To be able to say, look, back when we first invaded Iraq, we have this great big bomb. We will drop it on you should you push us to that point. But it was never actually used. However, when Donald Trump was asked about the situation, he praised it. He said that it was a very successful mission overall. And he's also indicated that he has given the Pentagon a free hand to use the weapon as part of his vow to combat Islamic State, which, if you remember back to his campaign, he said ISIS will be destroyed within my first 30 days. I'm not sure this is the way we need to go about it. I mean, I'm still kind of conflicted, because on the one hand, it's got to end. This is the second war we've gone into. I'm actually referring to Vietnam, for those of you not old enough to remember that war. This is the second pointless war that's gone on forever. It's cost tons of lives at this point. And it was over nothing. They were fine before we invaded and dismantled everything and took it all apart. But that's another tangent for another day. So it's got to end somehow, at some point, at some time. But in light of recent events, what just happened?
I got the video up. Sorry.
Okay.
I didn't know it was going to do it like that.
Okay. In light of recent events, it does seem a little strange to me that all of a sudden now we're just... I mean, it's... We go into Syria. It's not showing up on the page.
What's not showing up on the page?
The stream.
What do you mean?
This. I mean, look.
No, we're live right now. We're going.
Oh, okay. Because I got nothing. I got nothing over here.
What do you mean? Don't worry about what's going on the live stream. Just do the show. I got this.
Okay. I put my faith in you.
Obviously not.
I don't know how you do this. I just know that you push lots of buttons and make magic happen.
You want to play this video real quick?
Yes. Do you have it?
Yeah, I have it up.
All right. we'll put a pause on my. Let me finish out this MOAB, and then we'll get to that. Kenny did find the video of this cop and this young girl, so we'll get to that in just a second.
It's really small. It's shot from a really shitty cell phone, it looks like.
Yeah, it was. But Kenny was right in what he said. This bomb was actually tested at Eglin, to which they said the mushroom cloud could be seen up to 20 miles away. But yeah, remember last week when I said let's not go out and buy tinfoil hats and bomb shelters just yet? Yeah, nope. I think we need to go ahead and get that started. So if you haven't already found your perfect underground bomb shelter, I suggest you do that now. I hear they're fairly inexpensive at the moment. All right, Kenny, so go ahead and show that footage, and we will discuss it later.
It's already up. I mean, it's not very long.
No, it's not. It's like, I think it's like 45 seconds.
Yeah, and I'm not doing... Do you want me to do all of it from the beginning, or what?
Yeah, just so the viewers have some context as to actually what went on.
For some reason, I'm not hearing any audio.
It really doesn't have a lot of audio.
Oh, okay. Here, I'll make it bigger. This would be a lot better if there was some sort of audio.
I don't think that's not the video I was talking about.
Oh, well, this is it. Maybe this is a different angle, because in just a second, there it is. That's where he slams her down right there, right?
No, that's a totally separate video, and that's a totally separate person.
Oh. Well, apparently they're doing it a lot.
That's kind of my point. There is a lot of this going on, and I mean, you've got the. I love the fact that people are, filming this, because I don't think it's something that ever's really gone away. I think it's something that's kind of always been around, but I do think we're seeing more of it because of the technology we have now. Because people are, taking their cell phones out every time they see a cop. It's honestly, I think it's kind of a good thing. It helps. It's police accountability.
I mean, there's whole websites dedicated to that, like Cop Watch, shit like that.
The biggest problem I have is that no one ever seems to be held accountable outside of the court of public opinion.
Well, I mean, I'm not saying by any means that I condone this, but there's a certain level of protection that you have to be in law enforcement. And unfortunately, our federal courts continue to add on to that protection to the point where they can pretty much get away with whatever they want. And at worst, maybe they get sent home with pay for a couple weeks or whatever.
Well, I mean, that's like, and you look at the instance of Freddie Gray, regardless of what he was doing, what ultimately happened to him is not okay. Regardless of what he was doing. And the fact that a lot of the witness testimonies never came into court. And I would really like to dig up the footage from the CCTVs and have you look at it, because you know more about that kind of thing than I do. But it would appear, if you actually look at them, they appear to be cut.
Right.
And the footage from those cameras was not released to the public till I think it was almost 2 weeks after the incident itself. And several people, because the argument from the cops was, well, he banged himself around in the van, he did it to himself. But there's multiple people who didn't know each other who have said, no, we heard him screaming, you're hurting me. And then we watched them drag him to the van and put him in it. So, but it seems to just be happening. It's becoming more and more prevalent. I mean, look at what happened with United Airways. That escalated really fast.
Oh, I got something really... I've got a really good graphic for that, if you'd like me to load that up.
Yes, load that up. But now here's the thing, and this is something that... they're not necessarily defenders of United, but they have come out and they've gone, well... that is...
What?
Wow. Okay, so now we look like total insensitive assholes.
Sorry. We used that on the Underground Pub show last night.
Yeah, I saw. But no, technically, an airline can make you forfeit your seat. If you read the fine print of your ticket, it does say they can do that. However, that guy was dragged. He had his nose broken. He ended up losing some teeth. That is insane.
You know what's worse than that is after the story broke, there was a couple of newspapers, obviously in the pocket of big corporations, that just started digging up stuff on this guy. So he was a doctor,
right?
But he had his practice license suspended.
So,
well, I'm just saying there was some stuff that they dug up about him. I think that's bullshit too. Right?
But what for? I mean, see, it depends on what.
Well, they fucked up, so they're paying people to make it look like he deserved it. That's ultimately what it is.
Well, that's
damage control.
Yeah, it is, and the reality is what people fail to realize when we look at doctors, we somehow think they're all squeaky clean. That's not the way a lot of that works. You know,
they're humans.
Yeah, but it's not uncommon for even family practice doctors to have some form of litigation, to have some form of something. It's just the way it works. When you treat so many different people, you're always going to have that. There are some doctors that I feel should absolutely lose their medical license. But to say, oh, well, he had his practice license suspended, that could be for any number of things. And it's not uncommon at all for anything like that to happen. In fact, if you actually look at malpractice insurance that doctors have to carry by law, it is extremely expensive because it's so necessary. But then people are so damn litigious nowadays. You have to have insurance for everything. All right, so now that I've gone on that tangent, back to blood, death, and destruction.
Yes.
I said last week that I thought that the whole bit with Syria was going to get very interesting, and I think it is getting interesting, and not in a good way at all. Assad, of course, he's been confronted about gassing his own people, and this is what he said about it. He has said that the videos of the dead children are child actors, and that the whole thing was staged and faked in order to malign him and to make him look bad. That he really didn't do that. And then in another statement, he said he accused the U.S. of bombing a weapons cache belonging to Islamic State, and that's what caused it. That our bombing caused it. Now, the U.S., this is not the first time the U.S. has bombed Syria. We've done it several times, even recently. And in fact, it wasn't that long ago we bombed Syria and actually killed 15 or 18 of our own allies that were part of the Syrian military. So this isn't a new thing. But no, I don't think that's the way it went down at all. I do think it was total retaliation for him gassing his own people. He's been known for human rights violations. I'm sorry. Human rights violations. Fuck, he gassed his own people, 4 years ago? It was like 2013? That he did it under Obama, which, as much as I was a supporter of Obama, he basically went, don't do that anymore. No, dude, fix it. Because if something had been done then, this wouldn't have happened now. I mean, I understand it's easy for us to sit here and effectively play armchair quarterback, and it is a more complicated situation, but there's a limit.
Don't you think that it's somewhat of a mistake to go in and remove these dictators? Honestly,
yes, I do.
I mean, because
I do, and here's
people might live under like atrocious oppression, and there might be all kinds of fucked up shit going on. It's been proven that the dictators of these countries, like Saddam and so on, have been able to keep extremism and terrorism to a minimal basis and run the government somewhat efficiently, where when we go in and we remove these dictators, the countries go to hell, and then conditions get worse actually for the people. And I'm going to use Iraq as a perfect example, and I'm going to do some recommended reading.
If you have never read the book No End in Sight, Iraq's Descent into Chaos, I highly recommend you pick it up and get it. There was a film based off of it. It's not quite as good. It leaves a lot of the detail out. I read that book several years ago. In fact, while I was in the military, I read it. And I went back and fact-checked. I'm a huge fan of fact-checking. In fact, most of what you hear on this show has been cross-referenced 3, 4, 5 times in some cases. And that's what I did with this book. And it's,
unless you hear it from me.
In which case, he's never fact-checked and
full of shit most of the time.
Very much so. When we initially went into Iraq, what we did, we went over there, we dismantled everything from the government down to the military. People lost everything. Their jobs they'd had their whole lives were gone. And even our advisors here, military generals who have been to war colleges, said, do not do that. You will look like occupiers, and it's not a good plan. But we did it anyway. We sent very few interpreters over there. So now you have a group of people who, they're not like us. They don't have freedom of information. If I did what I'm doing now over there, I'd be stoned to death within a matter of minutes. So all their media, all the information they're given is totally state-run. They're told that we're the enemy, we're the bad guy, and we do this, that, and the other. And half of it is total shit. But because that's all they've ever been told, they don't know any different. And then we go over there and do exactly what they've always been told we do. That we hate Islam, that we hate Muslims, that we're going to take over and seize control. Well, that's exactly what it looked like we did. We looked like an occupying force, not like liberators. And what happened as a result is we created a power vacuum. When we took Saddam out of power, we created a vacuum with absolutely no backup plan. No, we're going to take this guy out, but we have no idea what to do from there. Like, just put him in a hole. We'll figure it out later. Yeah, and in the process, you had the rise of ISIL, you know.
They were too busy planting all the false flags to get us in there in the first place.
Well, that's exactly it. I mean, there were never weapons of mass destruction. No, we're going to get bin Laden. Here's what I'm trying to figure out about that whole thing, okay? How in the fuck did we spend what? How many years were we in there under Bush? 6 or 7 years. Okay, this dude, let's assume that we were truly trying to get bin Laden. How in the fuck do you miss a 6'2" man on dialysis for that long?
Yeah. I mean,
are you kidding me?
Yeah, he's not real. Like, I've read some stuff of some really legitimate people that basically said he's a plant. You know, he was an enemy that was created by multiple countries actually to justify all kinds of actions that have been taken in the Middle East. There's several videos, a lot of those famous videos of him walking around with the AK-47s and the what do you call that? A group of people that follow you or whatever. There's an entourage of masked terrorists or whatever. Those were usually paid actors. And they actually produced one of the flyers that was put out in this town to get these guys. And I don't remember it 100%, but I remember one of the lines was, you have to bring your own gun and mask, because they weren't supplying any of that. And they were literally making these propaganda videos by hiring people to come in and act like bin Laden henchmen.
I would have to see some, like I'm one of those, like, I question everything, and I don't believe anything ever.
No, there's videos. There's videos of them setting all this up. Go out there, they're on YouTube. They're all over the place.
Like I said, I would have to really look at it and really kind of analyze it from there before I form an opinion. But no, I do. It seems a little suspicious to me that all of a sudden, he's hunted down and shot in his house. The whole thing was hinky to me from the get-go. I do think a lot of it, and here's the thing about Bush. I am never going to sit here and say that I supported him or that I thought he was the greatest president ever, because I don't. However, one credit you do have to give Bush is that he legitimately loved his country and he legitimately cares about his people. he's also proof that you can be a C student and still president. But you never doubted whose side he was on. Unlike this asshat we've got in office now, who is making an absolute mess of everything he touches. I mean, it's amazing to me. He has spent more time playing golf in the last, 4 months than Obama spent in 4 years. It is insane. And by the way, it's us that pay for his little golf trips. Yeah, that's tax dollars.
I saw, I don't remember, I think it was the Washington Post that said that he's already spent, he's almost already hit the travel expense number that Obama did his whole time in office.
Yes, that's true. And here's the thing, in the meantime, we're cutting things like Planned Parenthood and Meals on Wheels and benefits programs that help the most vulnerable members of our society. We're trying to gut healthcare and, again, take healthcare away from people who truly need it. Why? So he can go play golf? No, fuck you, dude. You're a billionaire. Pull it out of your own checkbook. There's my story. Thanks for listening.
Tell him how you really feel.
Yeah, it's frustrating to me. It truly is frustrating. And the problem is that Trump supporters don't get it. And I know there's a lot of people, especially in the
No, they get it. They get it. And one of the ways I know they get it is I want you to remember the amount of bumper stickers and window decals and yard signs and hats. That shit is starting to go away, and you don't see it anymore. People are fucking embarrassed that they voted for him now.
I think there's some of that. I mean, what he did is he preyed upon the fear that the people had and the desperation that people had. But it's
how could you not know that dude was a shark?
Well, and here's the thing, there's a lot of people in the media, specifically the left side of the media, that will sit there and bash Trump supporters and call them everything but holy. And it's like, no, I really have some sympathy for them because they bought snake oil. I mean, and yes, you could criticize them for not being, not everyone is a rocket surgeon. Not everyone has the education that perhaps you or I do. But the fact that they were allowed to be taken advantage of the way that they have been, to me is very sad. Why no one stepped up and said, hey guys, we have taken this anyone can be president thing just a skosh too far. You are a reality TV star with no dealings whatsoever in diplomacy, government, nothing. No, sir. But... And I do think that the media helped him get elected because the amount of free press coverage that he got because of the shit he said and did.
I think another part of that is the media made it so apparent that Hillary was going to win that I think a lot of people that were going to go and vote because they were afraid he would get elected didn't.
The problem that I have with, first of all, I am a card-carrying member of the Bra Burning Brigade. I would love to see a woman president, not that woman. I'm sorry, I don't like her. And the thing that really just gets my goat about her is the fact that had Bernie run against Trump, Bernie would have won. Because Bernie could have won over the Trump supporters. Hillary couldn't. Hillary wasn't even liked by her own. Even the Democrats were like, well, shit, she's better than Trump. But the problem is the vast majority of the American people can't stand the woman. So, but it's like George Carlin said, this country was bought and paid for a long time ago. If your vote counted, you really think they'd let you do it. It's all a club, an exclusive club, and you ain't in it. I vote because it makes me feel better. I feel like I've done my civic duty. But again, I know it really doesn't mean shit.
Yeah, I'm done with that shit. What a waste of fucking time. They decide this shit, and it's fucking just retarded.
So, all right, now we've gone on. We run some serious rabbit trails on this show. One of these days, we'll get our shit together and run like a professional news outlet. So, for those of you who have been distracted by the bombs on Afghanistan, the bombs on Syria, what you have missed in your distraction, the U.S. has positioned destroyers capable of firing Tomahawks. They have diverted the Carl Vinson strike group to the area as well, all around North Korea. The U.S. is positioned and ready to do a preemptive strike against Korea if they follow through on their nuclear testing this weekend. Should they do that, we will, of course, drop more bombs. However, now this is where it gets cute. Korea has come out and said, if you strike, you will be the first nuke we drop. The problem with that is that, as you know, intelligence would have us believe, it is not believed that they can deliver a long-range weapon nor an intercontinental missile. So their lack of technology may be sort of the way the reason that doesn't happen. You know, they've been running some tests, doing some bomb tests here recently that have kind of piqued people's interest. For those of you who are not familiar with military verbiage, when I referenced that they moved the Carl Vinson strike group, what that means, the Carl Vinson is actually an aircraft carrier that carries fighter jets, houses, I want to say 3 or 4 squadrons. And an aircraft carrier in and of itself, people seem to see these magnificent pictures of aircraft carriers and go, oh, look, big boat. That's not the way carriers work. Carriers are actually not capable of defending themselves. They do not have weapons. They have 1 or 2, but they're not made for war necessarily. They're made to be floating airports. When we deploy a carrier, it has a series of destroyers, frigates, submarines. I mean, it's a dozen boats, and they circle the carrier to protect the carrier. They've diverted it now to outside of North Korea in case we do actually have to launch an air attack or do have to launch any kind of attack on North Korea as a result of the nuclear testing. But again, it's not believed that they can really do anything to us. It is right now just a threat, but it is definitely something we're going to keep an eye on. And
yeah, but that's going to piss off China, and then we're going to have China and Russia on our bad side, and that's pretty much the Eastern Hemisphere.
Well, we're actually already off Putin's Christmas card list.
Well, yeah, obviously.
Rex Tillerson, who is our new Secretary of State, actually met with Putin earlier this week in Moscow, and they discussed, and Tillerson came back and was like, look, you know, it didn't go well. He doesn't agree with us on many key issues, including Syria. Putin was very forward in saying that we don't think Assad gassed his own people. We don't believe that. But it should also be noted, as I've mentioned in the past, that Putin has been supporting Assad and his regime. So, of course, he doesn't believe that Assad is capable of that, which obviously he is. He's done it twice now, and come on now.
So they'll lead you to believe.
We are not.
Listen,
here's not that kind of show.
There's no such thing as good guy, bad guy. There isn't. Everybody thinks they're the good guy. Everybody tells lies. There's lies on both sides. You just got to weave through it and try to figure out which bullshit you want to believe, because you're not hearing the truth from either side. You got to know that.
Well, and that's what you have to do. I mean, especially, you know, when I write for this show, I can go to Fox News and read an article, and I can read virtually the same article on CNN, NPR, somewhere else, and it's totally different. The opinions, the way that it's worded, the verbiage, it all depends on which side of the aisle you sit on. So effectively what you have to do is read both sides of it and form an opinion based upon what seems the most reasonable. And you know, to me, that's kind of sad. Because the media's job is to do these kinds of things. There's a reason we have free press. And it is so that we, the public, can be informed. But trying to get information now is very difficult. And part of that, I think, is because there's so much of it. You know, but as a result of there being so much media, we've shut down. It's this sort of overwhelmed, bombarded feeling that we have. And it's like, fuck it, I'm checking out because I can't find what I'm looking for. There is way too much of this crap, and I'm done. Stick a fork in me. And I'm just gonna sit here with my blinders on. And that's just unfortunately, and then of course you have Trump who's coming out declaring
and
everything.
even his press secretary's reporting fake news. It's like it's been twice he's been called out for doing that, for like using fake news to make a point, and they're like, that was determined to be fake, and he's like, oh well, how are we supposed to know?
Well, that's because all Trump does is sit around and watch network news. And he watches Fox News at that. So he's really not getting he's really not getting accurate information. And I try to be as unbiased as possible as I can. Obviously I am a little slanted, in case you haven't figured it out. I lean a little more to the left. But that's just, I mean, everybody's got some political leaning. I just don't hide it and try to pass myself off as a legitimate journalist, because we all know that's a crock of shit.
Oh, the number one asshole of all of those is taking a quote unquote vacation.
Oh, you mean Bill O'Reilly?
Yes.
Bill O'Reilly is in some shiznit.
However, I don't think he'll go away because he makes Murdoch more money than anybody else in that station.
That's true, but the problem is but see, here's the thing. And for those of you who have never actually seen this chick, you should definitely check her out, just because she's, the peroxide has seeped into her gray matter. Her name is Tomi Lahren. I've talked about her before, but she's young, she's fresh, she's a millennial, and she's a right-winger. She did used to be on The Blaze, which is owned by, not Rush Limbaugh, the other one, Glenn Beck. She was on The Blaze. She made a comment that could have been interpreted as pro-choice, so he canned her. However, word on the street is that Fox had already offered her a deal to go to Fox and leave The Blaze, and that she was in the process of leaving The Blaze anyway. So I'm not wondering.
To me, she's just a pretty Ann Coulter.
She's not a pretty Ann Coulter, and I'll tell you why here in just a minute. I get the sneaky feeling that Bill O'Reilly is about to be replaced by a newer, younger model.
Ah, I see.
See where I'm going with that?
Absolutely.
Here's the difference between Tomi Lahren and Ann Coulter. I don't like Ann Coulter. Not a big fan. However, I am going to give her some credit, because she has built, I mean, she's got how many published books? She had her own show for a while. She's very successful. And she got that success from seeing a niche and filling it. And although I don't agree with everything that comes out of her mouth, and I do think she's not well researched, she's old enough to still remember when journalism really was predominantly male. And she came up through it through networks like Fox, who were totally sexist and suck. And she's made a career of it. And one of the things I really have to give her credit for is that she hangs out with Bill Maher on a regular basis. And the two of them, I mean, she's on his show at least once a year. And they have a professional decency towards one another, even though they're on different sides of the aisle. And I don't think, to be honest with you, I don't think she believes a third of what she says. I think she has found her market, and she is cashing in.
Yeah, I've often thought that it was at least somewhat of an act.
But again, how can you fault her for that? If she's done that and built, amassed the wealth that she has and been able to parlay the career that she has out of that, then, go get him, girl. I will give her credit for that, despite the fact I think she's kind of a bitch. But Tomi Lahren is not truly intelligent, and she doesn't have the depth to do what Ann Coulter did. Tomi Lahren is being used because she's pretty and blonde and a millennial, and the conservatives are using her as a means of trying to attract millennial voters, millennial viewers, and hope that the Republican Party doesn't totally implode. It's the same reason why Hardee's started using Baywatch babes to sell hamburgers. Sex sells. And she's being used and manipulated. And I have sympathy for that, because the second she hits 30, she's fucked. If she so much as gets a wrinkle, she is off. If she gains more than 4 ounces, she's done. You know, there, unfortunately, but then again, I don't think she's smart enough to actually see that. All right, so I think that's going to about wrap it up for us this evening. We want to thank you again for tuning in. Thank you for listening to us. Remember, share us, promote us. If you like us, let us know. You can always get on our Facebook page. That's probably one of the best ways to get a hold of me. Send me anything you want. Questions, comments, concerns, death threats. Whatever it is you feel is appropriate, send it that way, and we'll definitely address it. We thank those of you who have been with us from the beginning. Thank you for your continued support. We will see you again next week. Thank you. Remember, resist, dissent, and that's going to do it for us tonight. We'll see you again.